In light of the San Antonio Spurs making it to the first Western Conference Finals the franchise has been to since 2017, I thought it would be fun to make a video and go back and see how the Spurs rebuilt in order to become another contender in this league after not making the playoffs since 2019. So that's exactly what we're going to do in this video. This is the entire Spurs rebuild explained. So everything kind of kicks off here in 2019 when the Spurs lose in the playoffs in Game 7 of the first round to the Denver Nuggets. So this is what the Spurs were starting the rebuild with. This was the last game of their season in Game 7. Rudy Gay, LaMarcus Aldridge, DeRozan, Bryn Forbes, Patty Mills, Jakob Poeltl, Derek White, and Marco Bellinelli. This is the starting slate for the Spurs here. And on the bench, they had some notable names like Dejounte Murray, who had a torn right ACL, Chimezie Metu, Lonnie Walker, and Davis Bertans. And with Greg Popovich still as the head coach, the greatest head coach of all time, obviously this team was going into the 2019-20 season still trying to win. And because they were the 7th seed in last year's playoffs, they actually had the 19th pick in the draft, and they would use that pick to draft Luka Samanic with the 19th pick, obviously a name none of us probably know, but this is who they picked with the 19th pick. And with the 29th pick, they would draft Keldon Johnson, obviously a big piece of the team today, the 6th Man of the Year winner, and he would be drafted in 2019 with the 29th pick to the Spurs. And the only other thing the Spurs would really do in the 2019 offseason is trade Davis Bertans for DeMar Carroll, and honestly, that's really not that big of a move, but the Spurs are now heading into the 2019-20 season. And we all know that this season would end with the bubble, which the Spurs would actually attend, but it didn't matter because this was a very eventful season for the Spurs as they would snap their 22-year consecutive playoff streak this season. And when it came to the end of the season awards, the only Spurs player that got any vote for any award was Dejounte Murray for All Defensive Team. He would get 2 votes for that. So not a lot to talk about with the Spurs here. Not a good year, missed the playoffs, no awards. Yikes. But the roster looked about the same as 2019. Obviously, no Bertans off the bench. He wasn't really getting minutes anyways. But as you can see there, basically the same exact team and a healthy Dejounte Murray. So yeah, going into the 2020-21 season, maybe there's going to be some changes. But everyone was expecting the new era to kind of be revolved around Dejounte Murray as he signed a contract extension with them at the start of last year. So everyone was kind of expecting this new era to be transitioning around DJ. And with the 11th pick in the 2020 draft, obviously not making the playoffs, they got a lottery pick. The Spurs would draft Devin Vassell, who we all know today is a big part of the team. And look at this funny picture. It's because it was the 2020 draft, so it wasn't in person, but Devin Vassell looks so happy to be a Spur. And with their 2020 second round pick, the Spurs would actually draft Duke guard Tre Jones, which was graded an A. I still think this is a great pick today. I love Tre Jones. And so now they got 2 more guys to come in and help the team win. And they would also lock down Jakob Poeltl for a couple more years. So again, the team is the exact same, just those 2 more rookies, and they're running it back. However, a big shock, basically the first big move in the rebuild for the Spurs, LaMarcus Aldridge and Greg Popovich and the Spurs are going to agree to part ways here because the team is going towards more younger players, and so LaMarcus kind of wanted to go to a contender. Even though the Spurs were doing pretty good, they were actually above 500 at this point, but the Spurs would waive LaMarcus Aldridge. He's gone. And even though they were a couple games, even 5-6 games above 500 throughout the middle of the season, the Spurs would end the season on a really rough patch, having 2 5-game losing streaks. This would drop them all the way down to the 10 seed to end the season. But with the newly instated play-in game, they would still have a chance to make the playoffs, and the Spurs would match up against the Grizzlies in the 9-10 game, which the Grizzlies would win by only 4 points. And despite having a 21-point first quarter lead with 5 minutes left in the first, the Spurs would claw all the way back to a close game and even have a little lead late in the game, but would still fall short. Oh yeah, also Valanciunas would have a 23-point, 23-rebound game in this game. What? Let's take a quick look at the Spurs box score for this game. We have Dejounte Murray getting a triple-double, Jakob Poeltl, Rudy Gay, DeMar, adding Keldon Johnson and Vassell from those draft picks, but pretty much the same 2019 team, just no Aldridge, and then you're adding in those 2 draft picks of Johnson and Vassell, but still overall still centered around Dejounte Murray and DeMar DeRozan. And for this season, the Spurs would end with a little bit more voting love than last season. Dejounte Murray would get 5 votes for an all-defensive team, and Devin Vassell would get 1 vote for an all-rookie team. So, a little bit better than last year. And something I'm finding really odd making this video, going back, is seeing that DeMar DeRozan isn't landing on any of these voting lists. He played 61 games in 2021. He averaged 21 points on 49% shooting, but still no voting love in basically any category for him. Wow, I just went back and looked at this, and DeMar DeRozan, you see that little gap in between those awards? Those are his Spurs years. So in his Spurs years, he got no award love at all, not even a single vote in anything. But anyway, we're now heading into the offseason for the Spurs after missing the playoffs for the second straight year, something this fan base is not used to at all, waiving LaMarcus Aldridge. There's going to be some big changes, it seems like, for the Spurs coming up. But first, back to the draft. The Spurs, with the 12th overall pick, would select Josh Primo, and then with their second round pick, they would draft Joe Wieskamp out of Iowa. So this is now the third straight year that the Spurs have used their draft picks to kind of load up their roster with more young talent, and it seems like that's kind of the trajectory the team is going. That's why they waived LaMarcus, yada, yada, yada. Oh my gosh, look at this huge trade. August 6, 2021. Yes, this is the Russell Westbrook to the Lakers trade, and the Spurs were involved in it, so I'm going to put it in here. They got a little piece of the pie in there. Didn't really get much, didn't really trade much, but they were a facilitator for this trade. And another trade for the Spurs. Oh my god, on the trade block, they're going to get Doug McDermott for, I think, just 1 second-round pick, but Dougie McBucket's coming to San Antonio. Oh my gosh, the biggest trade of the rebuild so far. The Bulls are going to trade for DeMar DeRozan in a sign-in trade from the Spurs. Oh my goodness, DeMar DeRozan is gone. And the Spurs basically got nothing back for this trade if you look at it. I wonder if this is going to come back and the Bulls are going to return the favor in the future, maybe for like a point guard. But this is huge. I mean, DeMar was one of the most important players on the team alongside Dejounte Murray, and he is now gone, and the Spurs basically got nothing back. So they're basically saying, Dejounte Murray, we hope you have a big leap year because we don't really have anything else. So yeah, the keys were given to Dejounte Murray fully this year. There was no one else that was going to be taking touches away, and the Spurs were pretty cheeks throughout the start of the season. As you can see, long losing streaks ended up, 12, 13 games below 500. So the playoff streak of not making the playoffs, I guess, looks like it's going to continue. And the Spurs would be very active at the trade deadline. They had lots of pieces that contenders wanted, and they were shipping in and out role players, most notably Derek White getting shipped to the Celtics for Josh Richardson and Romeo Langford. So the Derek White era is over. But wow, even though the Spurs were buns, Dejounte Murray was hooping, dropping multiple triple-doubles, 30-point triple-doubles, getting hella steals in every single game. He was showing that he's kind of making that all-star league. And after some injury replacements, Dejounte Murray would actually make the all-star team. Very well deserved, in my opinion, the way he was playing on the team, basically carrying the team to every single win that they would get. So Dejounte Murray is named an all-star in 2022. And this is exactly what the Spurs fans were waiting for. Dejounte Murray, the guy that they extended, the guy that they're building around, drafting this young talent to be around Dejounte Murray, is named an all-star. This is exactly what they've been waiting for. He's having this crazy offensive leap, only up from here, right? And even with the DeMar trade and everything going on with the Spurs being super young and inexperienced, they would still end as the 10 seed. Similar situation to last year, going into the 9-10 game as the 10 seed. And they would be playing the Pelicans in the 9-10 game. I know the last clip had the Clippers as the 9 seed, but that's just how it ended up after all of the play-in games. And it would be the Spurs and the Pelicans in the 9-10 play-in game. And just like the last year, the Spurs would lose by 10 points in the play-in game. And this game was honestly kind of a Devin Vassell coming out party, dropping 23 points, and Dejounte Murray not having his best game, and Josh Primo starting and only getting 10 minutes. So, the Spurs kind of wanted to make the playoffs here, but also getting back in the lottery was kind of what this team was treading towards. So, losing this game isn't the biggest deal. And Dejounte Murray's end of season stats, 21 points, 8 rebounds, 9 assists, 2 steals per game. Huge leap for Dejounte Murray. I mean, his value is at an all-time high right now. And end of season awards, Dejounte Murray would actually end second in most improved voting, only behind Ja Morant. He would actually get an all-NBA team vote and 24 all-defensive team votes. So Dejounte Murray all across the board here for award voting. And going into this draft, the Spurs actually had a bunch of picks from all of the trades that they made. And with the 9th pick, they would draft Jeremy Sohan. With the 20th pick, they would select Malachi Branham. And with their third first-round pick of the 2022 draft, they would draft Blake Wesley. So a big haul of draft picks here for the Spurs in 2022. Again, trying to build around Dejounte Murray and adding to that young core they are building through the draft. This is looking like the team is honestly growing a little bit more than we thought. Whoa, Dejounte Murray traded to the Atlanta Hawks, the first Woj bomb of the summer. Oh my goodness. Dejounte Murray for 4 first-round picks. The Spurs are fully going into rebuild tank mode now. They have basically no all-stars on their team. Oh my goodness. And yes, while 4 first-round picks may seem like a lot, remember, Dejounte Murray just came off everything we just talked about. The Hawks were hyped, Trae Young was hyped, and the Spurs were going fully into tank rebuild mode because they had a prospect in mind. that they wanted to get. Yes, this upcoming next year's draft would have Victor Wembanyama, one of the best prospects, if not the best prospect in NBA history. And he already had ties to the Spurs through France and Tony Parker and everything. So the Spurs were all in for this guy a year before the draft. And the Spurs were absolute buns this year. As expected, they were blatantly tanking. So many other teams were also blatantly tanking, trying to get Victor Wembanyama, trying to get the highest odds in this draft lottery to get Victor Wembanyama. And something that I think is absolutely hilarious is that at the trade deadline, the Spurs were like, we're not taking any chances. We're trading Josh Richardson and Jakob Poeltl off the team because we want no vets on the team. We want no chance to win any game because we need the number one odds. And it would work. The Spurs would be 15th in the Western Conference and have the number one odds for the first overall pick in the 2023 draft. And they have the same record as the Rockets, but they would actually win a coin flip for the odds and get the number one odds over the Rockets. And something I wanted to talk about is some of the young talent development throughout the season. We had Keldon Johnson average 22 points per game. Jeremy Sohan, one of the best young defenders in the league, averaged 11 points per game on 5 rebounds. We had Devin Vassell average 18 points per game on 39% shooting from 3, and Trey Jones averaging 13 and 6.5 assists. So throughout the tank year, they did get some upside light, which was these young players looking like they might be a part of the team in the future. And on the lottery night, probably one of the most watched draft lotteries of all time, the Spurs would win the number one overall pick, and they actually had like a Wemby cam, and Wemby was so happy that the Spurs would get the first overall pick, obviously because he grew up a Spurs fan. And with the first pick, they would obviously pick Victor Wembanyama, one of the most obvious first overall draft choices of all time. And after that 1 year of tanking, they would get the first pick, they would draft Victor, and the entire franchise's trajectory is now changed. And the Spurs would also sign Julian Champagnie to a multi-year contract in mid-July of 2023. So another big move for the Spurs that didn't seem big at the time, but obviously we all know what Champagnie has panned out to be. And also during the summer, the Spurs would be a facilitator for some trades, and they would actually get Cedi Osman and also be a facilitator for the Grant Williams trade. So the Spurs still involved in the trading things, getting some second round picks, first round picks here and there. But the Wemby era of the Spurs was upon us. It is the 2023-24 season. We have rookie Wemby coming into the league, one of the most hyped players of all time. The Spurs end up getting him after everything they had been through with DJ and DeMar and LaMarcus getting waived and everything. It is a new era of Spurs basketball. And the preseason for Wemby was honestly pretty insane. He was throwing down Euro step dunks, and the ratings for the Spurs were back to what they were, in the Tim Duncan era, if not even higher than that now. So now we're heading into let's go into this season. Let's just see what Wemby does. It's his rookie year. Let's see what the Spurs do. Yes, folks, you are seeing that correctly. That is a 16-game losing streak for the 2023-24 Spurs, with rookie Wemby playing in pretty much all of those games. Yikes. And yes, this is an era of the Spurs rebuild that honestly gets looked over a lot. Wemby was playing in all of these games. He was starting, he was getting minutes, and the Spurs just sucked. Rookie Wemby wasn't enough to get them out of that tank that they went through last year. It just wasn't enough. And here were the main key pieces for the Spurs. They had Vassell, Keldon Johnson, Wemby, Trey Jones, Jeremy Sohan, Champagnie. They also had players like Malachi Branham, Cedi Osman, Zach Collins playing. So it looks like these are names that we've all kind of brought up throughout this rebuild. And, the team just wasn't good. That's really it. The team just wasn't that good yet. And it's not like the expectations were for the Spurs to make the playoffs or even, make the play-in or anything like that. But, people definitely thought that they were going to be better than, 16-game losing streak, one of the worst teams in the league. But honestly, this wasn't even one of the worst things to happen to the Spurs, as they're now going to be going back into the lottery and getting more help for Wemby. And the Spurs wouldn't really panic at the deadline. They'd make one deal, which would be to ship off Doug McDermott to the Pacers. And so that's really it. They didn't panic. They didn't try to, make a home run swing for Wemby's rookie year. They knew that they had time. And the Spurs would end as the 14th seed by 1 game just above the Blazers in the Western Conference. And so they are now heading into the 2024 draft lottery with pretty good odds to maybe get Wemby some help. Obviously, this is one of the weaker classes that we knew coming in, but still a top pick, Wemby getting help regardless. And Wemby obviously changing the trajectory of the awards here for the Spurs. He would win win Rookie of the Year. He would actually end second in Defensive Player of the Year, obviously be all defensive first team. He would also get an all NBA vote, and Devin Vassell also getting a most improved vote. So the Spurs with Wemby are back on the awards trackers. You know, he wins an award. A lot of people thought he got snubbed for Depoy, but it's looking good. And they would have the 5th best odds at the number 1 overall pick, but they would actually jump 1 spot to the 4th overall pick, and they would draft Stephon Castle, the champion out of UConn, a point guard that looks like he's going to fit pretty well with Wemby. And they would also have the 8th overall pick in this draft, and they would select Rob Dillingham, another point guard, which at the time was a little interesting. Spurs fans were like, what's going on? But he would quickly be traded to the Timberwolves for some future picks. Obviously, the Spurs talent room and young talent room is full, so they're going to ship him out for some future picks. And in another trade, the Spurs would actually end up acquiring veteran Harrison Barnes to help, give some vets on the team. And the Spurs would sign Chris Paul to duo up with Wemby and help mentor him and mentor Castle. So this is looking great for the Spurs, getting some vets in the team. So now the Spurs are more pivoting towards Wemby and Castle. Now, Wemby and Castle are the forefront of the Spurs. They still had other players like Vassell and Sohan and Keldon Johnson and players that were still a part of the rebuild, but obviously, Wemby and Castle is now the forefront focus of the rebuild. And look at that, the Spurs through the first 30-ish games of the season, 40-ish games actually, sitting around 500, dramatic improvement from being like 3-20 last season, and the new duo of Area 51 is looking really good. And Stephon Castle had some games, amazing statistical games, and some games were a little bit lower, but mainly for him, all the NBA fans, all the Spurs fans, it was the eye test. He was flying around, playing great defense. He looked like an athletic freak, and so he looked like maybe the perfect person to put next to Wemby. And Wemby was having a decent second year as well, showing off all of the skills we saw in his first year and also improving on a lot of things too. He was taking a lot of three-pointers and just kind of trying to grow his game, and the second-year Spurs team, could they be fighting for a play-in spot? Da-na-na, da-na-na. De'Aaron Fox, the rumors were true. Hella rumors were talking about this before it happened, but he's heading to the Spurs. Oh my God, what did the Spurs give up? Did they give up Castle? Did they give up a pick? What did they give up? They gave up Trey Jones, Zach Collins, and Sidy Cissoko and got back De'Aaron Fox? What? Oh, right. So the Spurs end up getting De'Aaron Fox in this trade, and they basically didn't have to do anything because the Bulls facilitated the trade for them. They gave Zach LaVine to the Kings in order for Fox to go to the Spurs, and I truly believe this is just a repayment of the DeMar DeRozan trade way back when. Well, now we have Wemby and Fox as kind of the new duo. Obviously, Castle is still there, but Fox is an all-star. I mean, putting him next to Wemby is only going to make him better. Oh my gosh, just some of the worst news you could ever hear as an NBA fan, especially as a Spurs fan. And Spurs, Victor Wembanyama is going to be shut down for the rest of the season because of a blood clot, a deep vein thrombosis, and they're not messing around. They're shutting him down for the rest of the season. This is only a couple of weeks after the Fox trade. What? And a couple of weeks after that, Fox undergoes season-ending surgery as well. Apparently, he was playing through some tendon damage, and now he's out for the season, so no Wemby, no Fox. At least the Spurs still have Stephon Castle, and they can kind of just give him the ball and let him develop into the player that they want him to be. I mean, when is he ever going to be the number one option like this ever again? I mean, you got to take advantage of it, right? I mean, it sucks, but you got to see the silver lining in something. And Castle would take advantage of being the number one option, having some really good games, near triple doubles, and you could clearly see 14 assists, probably that mentorship from Chris Paul helping him out a lot, and Castle is looking like maybe he's the front runner for Rookie of the Year. But also the Spurs would fall in dramatic fashion, losing two of their star players, obviously in Fox and Wemby, and their play-in dreams would basically get put to rest as they would end as the 13 seed, but that means they're back in the lottery, so more help, more young talent. And Castle would win Rookie of the Year, which means the Spurs have just won back-to-back Rookie of the Years. Oh my goodness, and Wemby and Castle, the future is looking really bright for them, and now they're in the lottery again? Could they win back-to-back Rookie of the Years if they get the first pick in Cooper Flag? Like, who knows? Yeah, but they won't get the first, or maybe even second or third pick. They do only have the 8th best odds for the first pick, and they just jumped up and got Wemby, and then they got Castle. They jumped up last year, so, I mean, the odds that they jump up again, especially in a deep class like the 2025 class, I mean, there's no way, right? Yes, there is a way. So the Spurs jump all the way up to the second pick at having the 8th best odds, and they draft Dylan Harper, which he was the best available. It was a little confusing at the time because the point guard room was Fox, Castle, and Chris Paul. Obviously, Chris Paul was looked at as kind of a one-year rental, but still having Fox and Castle in that point guard room and now adding Harper seems like it's going to be a little bit crowded. Don't really know how we're going to make this work, but he was the best available, and he's an amazing player, and now he's on the Spurs. And the Spurs would also have the 14th pick in this draft, and they would select Carter Bryant, a big 3-and-D wing. Honestly, something that they've been missing. They have guard play, they have Wemby in the big play now, and so now Carter Bryant, adding him to this team is honestly one of the perfect fits. He is young, but I guess we'll see how he fits with the team. And the Spurs also win the Luke Kornet sweepstakes. One of the best backup bigs in all of basketball, won a chip in Boston being the backup big there, even started a lot of games there, and backing up Wemby, this is a problem that the Spurs have had, is the non-Wemby big minutes, and Luke Kornet is almost perfect to bring in for that. And now we see the Spurs kind of giving up on a little bit more of their young players that they drafted in 2022, trading Malachi Branham and Blake Wesley for Kelly Olynyk. These guys just weren't cracking the rotation, especially with all the new young talent coming in and Harper, Castle, and everything. So yes, they're going to be shipped off. Okay, a lot has been going on ever since the Spurs had drafted Wemby. Let's kind of do a re-benchmark check on what the young core and just what the team is looking like right now. So obviously, the Spurs have drafted Wemby, Harper, and Castle in the last 3 drafts. They just drafted Carter Bryant as well. They traded for De'Aaron Fox last season. That's kind of all the new things. We had Jeremy Sohan for the 2022 draft, who's still on the team. We have Keldon Johnson from the 2019 draft. We have Vassell from the 2020 draft. Josh Primo obviously got waived. I don't know if I ever said that in the video, but he got waived for really weird reasons, so he's off the team. Anyways, the team is looking really new. There's a lot of fresh legs on this team, and we haven't really even seen what they look like because Wemby and Fox both get hurt halfway through the season, so we have no idea what this new team looks like. We obviously are bringing in a generational talent like Harper, and so now we get to see what the team really looks like with Castle, Wemby, Harper, Fox, obviously the vets Barnes and Kornet all on the team, and so there's a lot of question marks and a lot of uncertainty, but a lot of hope and excitement for this team as well. And heading into the season, the Spurs had an overall win total of 44.5. Obviously, they crushed it with 62 wins, but a lot of people thought this was kind of a high total for this team that no one's ever seen. That's basically a playoff team. And obviously, head coach Mitch Johnson coming into this season doesn't have that much head coaching experience, but obviously being under Pop and everything that happened with his health, prayers for Pop. Everyone hope he's okay. I didn't really want to talk about it too much in this video just because it's really sad to talk about, but Mitch Johnson is taking over the head coaching spot. There's a lot of question marks. Is Mitch Johnson the guy? Well, he would prove himself to be at least somewhat of the guy, as the Spurs would go on a 5-0 start, their first ever in franchise history, which is crazy to say considering everything that they've done. And the Spurs look absolutely amazing to start the season. They are one of the top seeds in the entire league, and they would actually go to the finals of the NBA Cup, beating OKC in the semis. And OKC at the time was like 24-1 or something crazy like that. And the Spurs had beat them. And then now they're going to the Cup Finals, which they would lose. But still, this team is showing early that they are here to play. And everyone knows what the Spurs did to OKC throughout the season, going 4-1 against the Thunder, the best team in the league. The Spurs wiped them. And, that's a big deal heading into this Western Conference Finals series that we're going to see. And the Spurs would end as the 2 seed in the Western Conference with all-stars to Wemby and De'Aaron Fox. Wow, just an amazing regular season for the Spurs. And Wemby would catch that elusive depoy. A lot of people thought he should have won his rookie year. Obviously missed out on half of his season his sophomore year, so he couldn't win it. And he wins it unanimously. And throughout the season, the only move that the Spurs really made was waiving Jeremy Sohan, their 2022 first 9th overall pick, and he pretty much got waived because Carter Bryant was kind of taking over that spot. And the point guard room issues that we had mentioned that we were a little worried about was honestly fine, as Castle and Fox started together and it worked well, and then they had Harper off the bench to kind of be that fill-in guy, and Harper is amazing. He'd probably start on 29 other NBA teams, but yeah, the point guard room was looking amazing. And now we're basically caught up to present day as the Spurs go to the playoffs. A lot of people are thinking, oh, they don't have playoff experience, it's going to be rough, as they take down the Blazers in 5 and then they take down the Wolves in 6. They're now heading to the Western Conference Finals after everything we just talked about in this video, this entire rebuild. Obviously a lot of luck with the draft, a lot of skill, and maybe even some deals with the Bulls early on to get that Fox trade going. But overall, the Spurs rebuild is something that I really enjoyed making a video about. And if you guys enjoyed it, please like, please subscribe. I drop videos multiple times a week. I talk about the NBA, and I love you all. Peace.